In this video, I'm going to show you how I make my homemade, thick, creamy, and savory sausage gravy. And to start off, I'm going to warm up my skillet. And I have a 12-inch skillet here. And I recommend using the cast iron skillet because cast iron skillets, they regulate heat well and give the meat a nice sear. And I set the burner on medium heat, and I allowed the skillet to warm up for about 7 minutes using an electric stove. It will take a minute or two if you're using a gas stove for the skillet to heat up. And I just added 1 pound of ground pork sausage to the skillet, and I'm just mashing it up. Now, when selecting ground pork sausage, you want to select a brand that has a ton of sage as well as a very high fat content. That sage is what will contribute a lot of the flavor to the gravy that we're going to make later on, whereas the fat content is what will help to generate a lot of the grease that we're going to use to make the gravy. So all I'm doing now is just browning the sausage, and you can see on the screen all of that grease that is collected in the skillet, and that's from the fat that is separated from the sausage. So at this point in the video, around 10 to 15 minutes have passed, and the sausage is fairly brown. And as mentioned earlier, you do want to sear the sausage a little in order to give it a bit of a crust as well as for slight caramelization. So I created a bit of a well, and to that well I'm adding 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. The reason why is because some of that grease from the sausage did evaporate from the skillet, and this is going to make up for it. And then once that butter is melted, you're just going to mix it around with the sausage until both are well combined. So now I'm going to add 1/3 cups of all-purpose flour to the skillet. Now, some folks like to dump all the flour into the skillet at once. I prefer adding the flour slowly and gradually. The reason why is because if you were to try to dump it in all at once, you risk having the flour clump up. So as you can see on the screen, as I slowly and gradually add that flour in, I'm also constantly stirring it around with the spatula to ensure there's no clumping and the flour is well incorporated. And then once that's done, I allowed it to cook for around 2 to 3 minutes on medium heat to ensure that it's not raw. And once that's done, you're just going to move on to the next step in the process. So now what I'm going to add to the skillet is 3 cups of half and half. There are recipes that call for whole milk. The problem with whole milk, it has a much higher water content, which will lead to thinner gravy. On the opposite end, there are recipes that call for heavy cream. The problem with it, it has a much higher fat content, so it will lead to overly thick gravy. So half and half provides the safe medium of giving you a creamy gravy that's not too thick. So with that half and half added, I mixed it until it was well combined with the sausage. And now I'm going to add my seasonings, which are ground marjoram, garlic powder, onion powder, iodized salt, ground white pepper, and red pepper flakes. And you can find the measurements for these seasonings linked in the description below. And I'm just going to stir in those seasonings until they're well combined with the liquid and the sausage. And once that's done, I'm going to allow the gravy to cook on medium heat for around 2 to 3 minutes. And at this point in the video, around 2 to 3 minutes have passed, so I'm just going to give it a good stir. And you notice, looking at the cooking spoon, it is already starting to thicken. Now, at this point, what will start to happen as well is the gravy will begin to bubble and boil. So you don't want it to boil over. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reduce the heat to medium-low, and then I'm going to allow it to cook for an additional 2 to 3 minutes on medium-low. And at this point, an additional 2 to 3 minutes have passed. In total, it's been around 5 to 7 minutes cooking time. And you can see how thick that gravy is now. And it is just about done. So I'm just going to continue to stir it to ensure that everything's well combined. And then once I do that, I'm just going to set the cooking spoon aside. And then we're just going to turn the burner off, and we're going to remove the gravy from the heat. And you want to serve this immediately because this will thicken rapidly, and that's what we're going to do. So I'm going to take my cooking spoon and pour some of that gravy onto my biscuits here. And these are biscuits I made from scratch. You can find my recipe for buttermilk biscuits on my YouTube page. And there you have it. If you would like more recipes, please like, share, and subscribe.